You are listening to the Eiffel Tower podcast. My name is Oliver G. This is a weekly show all about Paris, where I meet a guest who has something interesting to say, or several interesting things to say, as you'll find out this week, and I share it with you as a podcast, the Eiffel Tower. My name's Oliver G. This week, the 10th episode of this season, you're going to be hearing about the 10th district of Paris, the 10th arrondissement, and my guest is Nico from the hugely popular cafe restaurant Holybelly. Now you can find that restaurant in Rue Lucien Sampaix. In fact, they've got two on the same street, and if you can't sort of locate it, just look for the line of people, hungry people. Now the subject is also the 10th arrondissement, and when I asked Bertrand from My Private Paris about how to describe the 10th arrondissement, this is what he said.
Hipsters.
Hipsters?
Yeah. The 10th arrondissement. I mean, where do you live, Oliver?
I live in the 18th. You knew that.
Yeah. Well, but you could live in the 10th.
Yeah.
You have a blast there, right? It's the one, I mean, a part of it is known as Veggie Town. It's the place where you start to find really decent vegan, vegetarian of course, but vegan food also. It's the one where we have this word in France, we say bobo. It's a mix of bourgeois and bohemian. So it's kind of a older version of hipsters, let's say. And it's really there, just behind the Place de la République, that you have a part of Paris. It's Boboland. It's really, I mean, their place. And it's also a place where in the 10th arrondissement, where you start to find amazing cocktail bars, because we've finally come to understand that wine is great, but at some point you want to change the cocktails.
There'll be more from Bertrand and My Private Paris at the end of this episode. They're sponsoring this season. Check them out, My Private Paris. But now I want to talk cafes and restaurants with Nico. We recorded this in my studio and it was good fun. He was first on the show in October 2017. Hats off to all you guys who've been listening for that long. But let's get right into it. I had quite a long chat with both Nico and Bertrand afterwards, so there's no need for a long introduction. Let's get into it.
Nico from Holybelly.
There we go.
Holybelly.
Yeah, how do you even pronounce it? I don't even know.
I think we talked about this in October 2017.
It would be.
Yeah, well, what's in a name anyway? That's what I say.
Yeah, I mean, the name it's tricky when you pick a name. I mean, you had to pick one for your podcast. You always want to find something that really, speaks volume about what you're about. And for us, we're about taking care of your bellies, and we think of something that is sacred. So we choose the best ingredient and we cook it well. So it's just this part of your body we really want to look after. So it's the Holybellies. It's the Holybelly.
It's kind of like a tattoo. Like you want to get it right.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
When you're starting something like a restaurant or a cafe restaurant or a podcast and you think of a name, it's almost like you should do a temporary tattoo of it on your body.
Totally.
And just see how you feel with it.
You've seen some restaurants and like brands trying to do like a 180 on their original brand, but I don't think that ever works. No. You are what you are when you start it.
You also see some really terrible restaurant names in Paris.
Yeah.
Especially ones that try and do like English
play on words.
Yeah, I don't even know. There's some that are there'd be a whole blog post on it. Have you seen some of them around that are like
oh yeah,
Eat Cheeseburger is the name of the restaurant.
I mean, straight to the point. I've seen one that I think is terrible. It's called, Snapchat, right?
Yeah.
And there's just next to where I live, there's a place that does crepes, and the name of the restaurant is Snap ta crêpe. And that's a terrible name. Snap your crepes.
As in, they were hoping that it would be like viral on Snapchat?
Yeah, I guess. But you don't ask to go viral. It just happens with doesn't.
No, that's like calling your restaurant, hashtag us.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh my god. But hype is an interesting thing that we're talking about already because I don't know what I'm fascinated by the idea of hype and people being interested in something and social media and stuff like that. And as far as I'm concerned, it looks to me that your restaurant, both of them, are riding on a wave of hype that is amazing. And I don't know how you've done it, but I'm hoping that during this podcast episode, you'll reveal the secrets of how you made such a popular restaurant.
I think it's many elements. Do you want me to get into it right now? Or?
Because I'm fascinated by this stuff. I mean, for the listeners at home, we're going to be talking about Holybelly. We're going to be talking about Nico. We're going to talk about coffee, which we've both got in our hands at the moment. You just said it's like water for you.
Oh yeah, I run on that stuff.
How much do you drink a day?
I'm slowing down because I have trouble sleeping, but I just sip at it all day. I'm working, I'm talking, I meet people, and I just like to have coffee in my hand.
Is that like more than 8 cups a day?
Oh no. Oh, it used to be when I first opened the business, but I think now I drink one in the morning when I wake up. Then I drink one when I get to the shop, and maybe a big mug after lunch, and then I try to cut it off.
You've been in coffee rehab.
Oh yeah, I have to because I was in bed at 2 a.m. just being all jittery.
Okay, so we'll talk about hype. We'll talk about Holybelly. We'll talk about you, and I want to talk about the 10th arrondissement as that is the kind of arc for the series, the season. But let's get straight into it. I mean, you're doing it quite differently to most people in Paris, and I think we touched on this when we last met.
Yeah, well, I think so. Hype for me, I always like. So for me, I know what you're saying about hype. For you, it's something that is positive and it's interest. And for me, I'm trying to fight the word hype because I see hype as something that is ephemeral. That's something that doesn't last. So you open a place and you're hot. It's all new. It smells like fresh paint. You have an exciting menu. You have an exciting chef.
Yeah.
You have all the lights on you. And then people show up and you have, if you take reservation, you have a 1 month waiting list. And if you don't, you have a queue. And that's hype. And that's going to last for a week, a month. If you're lucky, maybe you can make that a year. That's hype. That's when you start. That's what pushes you in space. But then we've been around for 6 years. So I don't think the word hype is what is the most appropriate for what's happening to us. And so the reason why I'm pushing back on hype or the word hype is because you can't call us hype anymore because we've been here too long.
Interesting. So it's more there's longevity to it. So you know what I mean. I'm using it in a positive kind
I know. And that's why I'm not feeling hostile about it. But like on social media, when I read stuff about us and I see the word hype, I'm like, I don't think that's appropriate because we were hype for the first year, but now it's not even the second one or the third one or the fourth one. We're into year 6. So I think I want to lean closer without, being arrogant, but I think I want to lean closer to us making slowly and steadily our way towards an institution, or but sometimes I read the word the cult, cult status, and like.
Well, hang on, you want to lean into cult status?
Yeah, well, I think this is more respectful to the work we've been doing. We've been to go back to your question, what makes a place popular over the years or hype? 6 years into it is discipline, and so we haven't dropped the ball or almost haven't dropped the ball in 6 years, and that consistency and that longevity is what makes us still popular. And honestly, because we're going to be talking about the 10th, and I won't be naming any names, but in 6 years, I have seen cycles of restaurants around us opening and being hot and being hype and being closed. I have seen more than I could count on the fingers of my 2 hands.
Yeah.
So hype is a good thing, and then you need to make sure that you keep it and you nurture it and you make it last as long as you can. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is not social media, is not any kind of social campaign or a strategy. It is, I'm sorry to say, hard work. And like the minute you stop delivering on that original promise, it's gone.
Yeah. Do you think that's where a lot of these places that have closed down have gone wrong?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Not working hard.
Or just not the right way, or like every business is very different. You have sometimes people have trouble with their partners, and it's all great when you start, and you have that honeymoon period, like everybody's friend, and money's coming in, and then the first bump in the road, you start seeing the cracks of that relationship or that partnership, and then people go separate ways, and the business is closed. But like, I swear to God, like we were talking about this before going on air, and I live in the 10th. My son goes to school in the 10th. The businesses are in the 10th. I now know the 10th quite well, and like I ride my bike and my scooter around a lot for just running errands or whatnot. And you would not believe the short life cycles of businesses in this area. Yeah. Because having a cool Instagram account and being in the 10th and even doing good food is not enough. Yeah. You need to be disciplined. I think I would just simmer it down because it's something that I actively think about every day myself. Like, how come we still hot? How come we still alive? How come we still busy? How come we still have a long line on weekends? We are not new. Yeah. We are old news, and it's just discipline.
It seems to me like it's like a fire, right? Mm-hmm. Like, when you make a good fire.
Oh, yeah.
You put good logs in there. And
Yeah,
you take
yeah,
care
yeah.
of it. You stoke that fire. That's what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Seems to me like a lot of, especially, so where I live up in, I shouldn't leave the 10th arrondissement, but I'm going to temporarily. I live up around Pigalle, Montmartre area.
Cool area too.
Yeah, it's cool. And there are a lot of places opening quickly, but it seems sort of like, to use that fire analogy again, they're putting a lot of petrol on it or gas on it, lighting it quick, boom, let's go. And then they haven't put the big logs in.
I use a similar analogy when I talk about this. And if you listen to the episodes of my podcast,
that's what else we're going to talk about today.
I'm not trying to plug myself, but I talk about something that I call shooting stars because they go really high and they're really bright and they burn really high for a short amount of time. And like Sarah and I were never in this business to be hot for a minute. It was always about longevity and long term. And we just want to be that star that just shines, maybe not as brightly, but shines forever. For a very long time. And you're talking about a fire that you have to keep feeding with good big logs. And I think about the stars, like there's a million analogy. You can think about a house as well. Some people build this really good looking, flashy house with no foundation. And then it doesn't last the test of time. And I think we built some really solid foundations, some hard roots. And so now maybe we're not as pretty when we first opened, but we just built on something that was very healthy. And I think that's what's helping us navigate through the years.
For people listening at home, maybe they're sitting in a car on the 405 freeway in LA. I've had a couple emails like that lately. I wonder, to describe your restaurant a little bit, it's not at all traditional French food.
No.
The bistros nearby you that serve the typical kind of croque monsieur and, typical French food. You're nothing like that, are you?
No. I think we always had a bit of an identity crisis because I'm going to be quick about this, but Sarah and I used to live in Australia for a few years in Melbourne, and so we just loved how the line were blurred in those cafe restaurants. And like you would walk in and you would see this really sexy coffee setup, beautiful space, but also you would see this fantastic kitchen, chefs in full-on whites cooking like seasonal, delicious food. And it was like, it blew my mind. Well, first time I walked into an auction room back then, I remember, and I was like, what's going on? Like my rules were just broken. I was like, well, you're having a really good coffee setup, but B, you're also having a really nice kitchen. And this menu is a restaurant menu, but it's this very informal space. And I love that instantly because sometimes I feel like bistros or restaurants, I like the food, but I don't like the setup so much or the ambiance, So like to be able, and that's what we started to do, was to make food really seriously and do everything like a restaurant, like source the best produce and have real chefs and real cooks and work with the season, but do it all in a very relaxed environment and serving great coffee to go along that. And you were talking about LA and the 405, and I think LA is a really good example of places that are really, really, really solid about their food offering and also do it in a very relaxed manner.
LA and Australia have a lot of
exactly.
similarities. Do you get back to Australia or?
We've been back once, which was fantastic. It was good because we left saying, hey, we're going home to do this. And it was good to be able to go back a few years after and be like, hey, we did it or we're doing it. I don't like to think of it as finished, but I was like, hey, we're in the process of doing this thing. And it was cool to see that a lot of people had actually been following us, customers, regulars, people I was making coffee for and people that Sarah was cooking for. They kept an eye on us, and old bosses and work friends, and everybody was really rooting for us, which was really cool.
Do you get a lot of Australians that come in? I mean, I don't know how much you talk to the customers anymore.
Less than I used to, obviously, because I used to make coffee and like welcome everyone.
But do you get people that come in and go, oh my God, this is like Australia? Hang on, they wouldn't do an American accent. They'd be like, g'day, mate, this is just like Australia.
Yeah, we do. And for us, that's the ultimate compliment. Is when someone is like, hey, I feel like home, or, this reminds me of home, or you have to understand, like some people come to Paris for maybe couple of weeks and they've been loving all the croissants and they're loving I say ours because I'm French, way of doing breakfast. But I think after a while they need to reset their palate and go towards something that they know get some nice eggs and some bacon and so that's when we come in and we just this safe space for them.
Yeah, like a big strong house with a big strong fire in the fireplace.
That's us.
I love what you guys do. I've been visiting Holybelly since you were just the smaller place. Mm-hmm. I remember, I was thinking about it on the way here this morning. I remember what kept us coming back. So think about way back in the old days. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I've been in Paris for 5 years. I remember you used to be out the front at the weekends taking names.
Yeah.
And, you'd be like, yeah, come back in half an hour or something like that. Remember that?
That was, oh yeah, I do. That was already another iteration of the business. First, I was making coffee and welcoming everybody. We placed the coffee machine at the door, so I would always be there to welcome people.
Right.
And my hands were making coffee and all the drinks, and my face was welcoming people. It was a little crazy. We did that for a couple of years. And the period you're talking about, we already had hired a barista because we had increased the seat count. We did some renovation. We bumped the seat count, and I could not make all the drinks and talk to people anymore at the same time. So it was the first time that I did delegate, and I hired a barista, and so I had time to just be fully outside and welcome people. That's what you're talking about.
That was really cool because I remember I was new to Paris, and I think I knew one of the girls that used to work there, Regina.
Oh yeah, Regina, yeah.
And so she was nice to us. You were nice to us, and we used to come back and go, "That Nico guy is really friendly." I don't know if you were just putting on an act for everybody.
No, I think I'm just that's my nature, and I think you have to like people when you get into this business, and if you're gonna be opening a place. And if you're serious, if you're real about it, I think you, at the core of it all, you need to be a people lover. You need to love people. And that's, so now I'm into that really cool phase of my business where I don't do it myself per se because I'm too busy running the two restaurants. But I try to infuse that philosophy and that culture in my staff. And to me, that's more exciting now than just doing it myself.
Sure.
So I try to tell the guys, like, we're in hospitality, like we're in service, and so like you need to not put on a show, but you need to be genuinely friendly, and like this is your house and you're welcoming friends going back to the house with the big foundations. I always tell my guys, and sometimes we have, when people start, they're not used to being so friendly, and we really push like, hey, what made us and what make us still be here is that friendly service.
I think that is really hard to fake anyway. Like that's why it comes across as genuine.
You can't fake it.
No, you can't. I mean, maybe you could for a day. Or an hour or something like that. But like, you go into some places and you're like, gosh, that person that's serving me is totally faking it.
Yeah, she hates me deep down. Yeah, you can tell. People can tell. You can't fool people. And also, that's the reason why I stopped doing it myself, because I wouldn't say that I burnt out, but I did see the burning out coming. Yeah. Because you put yourself out so much. Like that friendly service you talk about really comes from deep down, and like you give a lot of yourself. And so after a few years I was like, oh, I'm tired, like I don't have that juice anymore, and I was like, time for me take a step back and hire some fresh guys who have that juice and like recharge.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And there's just while we're before I switch to your podcast, a shout out to a couple of Australian listeners I know who are big fans of Holybelly. I'm thinking about Brian in Melbourne, but also Lexi.
Oh, Lexi, if you're listening.
I'm sure she's listening. Hello, Lexi.
Hey, Lexi.
So let's switch now to your podcast.
Yeah.
You've joined the ranks of the Paris podcasters in English.
Yeah.
I can hereby officially welcome you to the club.
Thank you, sir.
How's that? Talk us through it.
Well, honestly, it's something that I think of my life as a 6-fire stove, and like I always got a lot of pots bubbling, and so Holybelly is always the biggest pot and the one that is always at the front of the stove, and on the back burner at the very back. I always had this idea of like, since the beginning, I've always been very transparent, and like that could really tie up to what we were saying about hype as well earlier. Like why Holybelly is so popular is because the way we run our social accounts it's different. We don't have any strategy. We don't try to sell anything. We just document the life of a restaurant, and we've been doing it even before we open. And that very down-to-earth, transparent tone has made us what we are today. And so I'm really into giving back. I'm really into showing the behind the scenes and trying to help as much as I can. And so the podcast was always this idea that I had on the back burner of inviting people from the industry, because we hear a lot about chefs. I think the spotlight right now, you've got Netflix, you've got all this great content, you've got fantastic books, but it's all about like Heston Blumenthal and Gordon Ramsay and David Chang, and you've got all these, and they all kitchen people. Yeah. And so I was like, maybe it would be cool if we could like talk about the restaurant as a whole, and like I see myself, and I like to call myself now a restaurateur, and we don't have a lot of people to look up to. You've got Danny Mayer, and that's about it. He's kind of the Pope, and he wrote the book, and so I was like, maybe we could add a voice to that conversation, and I could maybe share a bit about our journey, and by inviting friends who also are restaurant owners. And so yeah, WRP has been really nice to have me on. And for me, the major roadblock and the friction point number one for not doing it over the years was the technical aspect of it. And so I'm very lucky that the guys are taking this off my hand, and it's been going well.
And it's called That Restaurant Thing, right?
That restaurant thing, yeah.
That Restaurant Thing.
Impossible to pronounce, which was, we were talking about names earlier. Well, picking the name.
You didn't tattoo yourself with That Restaurant Thing?
I should have, man. It's a hard name, but also I think I was trying to tie it back to, like, you know, how the mafia call it that thing of ours, you know, and
right.
I was like, we're kind of a close circle of restaurant owners, and so it's that restaurant thing that we do, you know.
Do you guys, all the restaurant, like the people that you've had on so far have been sort of, you had the guy from Telescope.
Yeah, so I first had Edward from and since
Dylan
this,
Williams, right?
Yeah, since this podcast is about, like, also giving good addresses to listeners if they come to Paris. So Ed Williams from Le Grand Bain was first, and then we had Mark Grossman from Bob's, also an institution, and then we had Nico Claire from Telescope, and my next guest will be David Flynn from La Brûlerie de Belleville.
Right, cool.
Yeah.
So there you go, guys. If you're looking for a podcast to listen to after this one, check out That Restaurant Thing. But that's cool. Do all you restaurant people hang out around after hours? You know, like bartenders all seem to hang out at 3 a.m.
Yeah, that was before, because, like, you know, I opened the Holybelly when I was 26, and I had to work all the time. That was the only thing in my life, was to make the business successful. So we'd work from early till late, and then we'd go out and then we talk and chat and drink, and then do it again the next day. I'm 33 now. I have a boy, so things have been, you know, my priorities have shifted a little bit, but I try to see my friends as much as possible, and I wish I could go out a bit more, but I think that will come back. But yeah, to answer your question, I think there's this very tight circle of, and I like to think that there's this really tight circle of restaurant owners that do things differently and better, because Paris is an old city, and there's a lot of restaurant owners that are not nice and that don't do things the right way, and that will try to, you know, scheme and steal and
I think there are a lot of people coasting.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of people coasting.
There's a lot of coasting going on.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of, like, active trapping of, I don't want to scare people from Paris, God no, please come down, but
the people listening to this show, they get it.
Yeah, they get it. Paris. Yeah, here you go. So the people that just kind of, like, simmer up to the surface, the people that do try to do it quite well, we kind of know of each. If we don't know each other, we know of each other, and it's a pretty small group.
Do you have any tips for people about how to avoid a bad restaurant in Paris?
Definitely. I would, if you show up to any brasserie, have a good look at the menu, and, like, if they're serving something that's not seasonal, if the menu's too big. If the menu is like 6 pages long, you need to run. Short menu is always best, maybe 2 starters, 2 mains, 2 dessert. You know that they're changing the menu all the time. You know that it's fresh.
Interesting.
That's a big one. If the menu's too long, the fact that it's in English, not obviously a deal breaker, because it's okay if they adapt to their clientele. So, like, I used to be like, if the menu's in English, be careful, but it's not actually true. But yeah, if it's long, that's for me, that's a red flag.
Do you think if it's sometimes they've got it almost engraved on a thing out the front, that's probably a bad sign?
Well,
too.
yeah, I mean, technically you can't serve the same thing all year through, right? So
you mean I'm no expert on this. You mean because if something's unseasonal, that means they're shipping it in from?
Yeah, it's not going to be the best produce you can get. And I think if you travel all the way from LA, or if you travel all the way from Australia, you want to eat some really fresh, delicious French food.
Sure.
And the only way you're going to get that is if it's written on a blackboard, because they're going to wipe that down at the end of the day and write the menu for the next day, and that's where you want to eat.
Cool tip.
Yeah.
What about, let's say you've got no choice, there's only one place open, it's a disgusting restaurant. You know you're in for an unpleasant surprise. What would you recommend would be the safest dish you can get at a bad restaurant?
I would stay away from anything fishy. I would definitely, and even, like, I wouldn't get a salad or anything. I would ask for a steak, get it well done, and some fries or something. You can't get wrong with that. Potatoes, they're going to get deep fried. They're going to, anything that's dodgy about them is going to be fried off.
Yeah.
And if you ask for a steak well done, even if the steak is not at its prime, you're not going to get
Is it true that only, I've heard that only Americans order well done steaks, and French waiters will scoff at you.
Yeah, it's true. It is what's been said about American customers. But I don't know. They also have this great barbecue culture, and, like, it's not dry. So, like, they do have a palate for well-cooked meat. I think they're just trying to play it safe, maybe. I'm French. I'd never go for bleu, or I never go for saignant. I just like my meat. I go for à point.
I'm glad you said that, because let's do a little language lesson, and then we're going to switch to the 10th.
Sure.
You're ordering a steak. There's several different ways to order it. Can you give me the language lesson on how to do it and everyone at home?
Yeah, sure. So like, if you go to like a brasserie or whatever, and the places that do really good meat, they won't even ask. They will just cook it the way they think it should be cooked. For example, my friends at Brutos, they do like this really good barbecue meat. They're Brazilian, and they will never ask you like, how do you want your meat done? They just will give it to you the way it should be eaten, which I like. But if you go to like a more traditional restaurant, they will be like, okay, well, you want the steak, how do you want it done?
And how do they say that in French?
Donc pour comment vous voulez la cuisson? C'est la cuisson. And so the first one is bleu, which is like barely touch the pan. That doesn't do it for me because like the center is raw. The people say, I think it's kind of like you were talking about hype. It's a bit hype to be like, oh, it might be blue. Like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't do it for me. Then the next step is saignant. So like it's a bit more done. And I'm okay with that. Like the center is a bit hotter. It's still a bit raw, like slightly cooked, and you get that nice color on the outside. I can eat that. I don't want to mess this up. I'm no chef, but so you got bleu, then you got saignant, and then you got à point, which is for me the sweet spot because like you still got a bit of pink in the middle, but it's cooked and it's hot and it's delicious. Anything north of that, I won't do it.
You'd say bien cuit?
Bien cuit, ouais. So it's like bleu, saignant, à point, et bien cuit, ouais. And it's like I never go there.
The people like language lessons at home, so we're gonna do it one more time, and we're gonna give them space to respond.
Okay, let's
imagine
go
everyone that you've come into a restaurant. The waiter, you I'll play the waiter.
All right.
You play the customer, and everyone at home can repeat, so they practice when they're ready to come in.
Let's do it.
Monsieur, le cuisson.
Je vais prendre à point, s'il vous plaît.
À point.
À point.
And next.
And my friend mon ami va prendre bleu.
Bleu.
But don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do that
one.
No good.
And then saignant.
Saignant, voilà, ça c'est bien. Saignant.
Okay. And bien cuit.
Bien cuit is like, c'est bien cuit. Yeah.
Cuit. There you go. Little language lesson
to
tide us. I bet you didn't think you'd be doing that this morning, Nico. 10th arrondissement. Mm-hmm. Both Holybellys are in the 10th arrondissement. People call it a hip area. People might say it's a hype area. Yeah. You wouldn't.
I'm okay with that. And like, it definitely ticks all the boxes to be called that. When we first moved in the neighborhood in 2013, it definitely wasn't that hot.
Yeah.
And what makes a neighborhood hot? It's a thing of mysteries. I think maybe we had a little something to do with it. I don't know. But if there's foot traffic, there's gonna be restaurants. So maybe when a good place open and it does attract, we see a lot of Ubers parking in front of the restaurant. And so creating that traffic will definitely people are like, maybe the 10th. It used to be Old de Marais, and
sure.
All these areas were shit before they became hype. So isn't it true for any neighborhood really? Like, wasn't Brooklyn just this deserted land before it became this really?
I'm no expert on Brooklyn, but
Me neither.
I've
But
heard,
I think the growth of neighborhoods is pretty much similar to any city. There's nothing there. It's cheap.
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't have a lot of money but knows how to cook is like, that's the only place where I can open my restaurant.
Sure.
And
same with shops as well.
that's it.
Yeah.
And then do something of interest. People are attracted to good things. They will start showing up. And the guy next door be like, hey, well, not next door, but like people that want to open a restaurant be like, hey, he did it. Maybe we should open like across the street or next, and then you have a neighborhood.
The worst thing that ends up happening is like, up in Montmartre, like Rue, I think it's Steinkirk, where it's just up towards the Sacré-Cœur, and it's just all touristy.
Yeah.
They sell T-shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
Every single one sells the same stuff.
I know, right?
I don't know how that happened.
And I'm the same, but like it's okay. So I'm going to talk about something. It's I know that there's a pancake restaurant that's opening across the street from us. So we're at number 5, and there's a place at 8 that's opening, and one of their main menu items is going to be pancakes, which is also one of ours. How did that happen? I don't know, but it just happens. I think people find it sometime, and like I'm willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. And like sometimes you have just the right amount of money and the only shop that's available. When you go shopping, it's you don't pick exactly where you want to go, And so we had to go with Holybelly first, where it is, because it had the right price for us, and we didn't pick that street. That street picked us.
The people opening that pancake place have got to be a little bit embarrassed about that.
I don't know. I've been, so my position, my posture about this opening, it came through me through the grapevine. I didn't hear about it from them. I could see from my window that there was some work going on across the street, and I heard through the grapevine it was going to be what it's going to be. I'm just being patient. So I'm not being nothing. I'm being neutral. You know, I'm neither friendly nor hostile. I'm here. I'm standing here and I'm watching. And we were talking about longevity before and hype, and I'll watch this place go through the cycles.
Yeah.
And if they're still around in a couple of years, then I'll go introduce myself.
All right, let's finish up on the 10th. Let's step outside restaurants for a bit and cafes and talk about the arrondissement on the whole. The Canal Saint-Martin,
Yeah.
that's part of the 10th.
It is.
That's a pretty... I've heard that 20 years back, that was... I don't know. Have you been in Paris your whole life?
No, so see, that's the thing. Like, I was a latecomer to Paris myself, and definitely to the 10th.
Where are you from?
Well, so like, I'm one of these army kids, so my dad was moving around a lot, but I was born down south in Avignon, and we used to live in Lyon, which is a cool city as well.
Both cool cities.
Yeah, and then my dad's work took us to Paris, but I'm not. I wish I could say I was 100% Parisian, but I'm not.
So you weren't around when it was apparently old. Have you heard the stories like drug dealers?
Yeah. Well, I had it's cool. The good thing about this is that I know my neighbors quite well now, and some of them are like pure product of the 10th since they were kids. And also I had some of my staff, especially a cook that grew up in the 10th. It was telling me some stories about things you wouldn't believe in Paris, like in the 10th now, but like we were talking like guns and like in the staircases and drug deals and a lot of prostitution. The canal was a prostitution highway, like a red light district for many years.
I think you know the movie Amélie.
Yeah,
that had a lot of scenes, or at least
a
kind
few
of famous scene down by the canal.
Where she ricocheted on the water.
That's right, skimming stones. I wondered if that maybe was a part of the, like a movie that made it big around the world.
I'm sure, like, I know for a fact that people will look for that location.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. I mean, it is beautiful. I'm so glad that I don't want to, then you fall into this whole conversation about gentrification and like neighborhoods losing their their flavor, but I don't think anyone loved the 10th back then. It was smelly.
Sure.
It was dangerous-ish, and it was no good. It was a lot of drugs going on in the canal and stuff. So without it becoming the new Marais, I don't think we want that. But like, I think I'm happy to see that this neighborhood that's beautiful with that canal and that gorgeous stretch of water and those bridges. I'm happy that they're accessible now and clean.
I wonder if it's because I think the Gare de l'Est and the Gare du Nord train stations, they're both in the 10th, right?
Yeah.
So that would have been a big reason why, a lot of traffic. Yeah.
Train stations always kind of bring that, little flavor to your neighborhood. And it's harmless. Like, to people listening to this, you just need some common sense when you navigate those areas, but like nothing is going to happen to you ever. Like, I live at Gare de l'Est. I can sit from my house and like I go home at 1 a.m. Never even remotely did anything happen to me.
Yeah, and we're sitting very close to Gare du Nord now as well.
It's fine.
Listen, I'm going to finish on a question. I'm going to finish on two questions. Last time we talked, you said that your dream guest to come in was, I think, Obama or Jay-Z or something. Or both. Have either of them come in since we spoke?
No, man.
Have you?
No, we had LeBron, which was cool.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, we had LeBron. That was nice. I'm not a huge basketball guy.
Guess what? I am.
You are?
Next time, text me.
Oh, man, yeah, I know. That's what people said. I had a lot of friends.
Actually, that would be the worst thing. You usually can't be texting people when celebrities walk in.
That is our approach. We're like, I'm telling the guys, like, just chill. Yeah. And so we did try. I mean, we never do that, but like the bodyguards were so friendly, and the guys were really pushing. They were like, Nico, can we get a picture? So I went to the bodyguard that was really friendly, and I was like, hey, I like the guys. You're really like, they would love a picture with LeBron. Do you think that's possible? Yeah. And it was just so kind of. I was like, I'm sorry, like, we don't do photos. I was like, that's cool. Yeah, no worries. So the bodyguard had breakfast on one table, LeBron and his entourage had breakfast on the other table. I just went over as owners do, quickly introduced myself, hope you're having a good time, just walked out. That was it. And they were super nice.
I know this is unprofessional, but would you ever tell what he ate?
Oh, it was just like, they had everything.
Is it unprofessional?
I don't think it's not like but we're not. I'm not a shrink. Like, I'm not disclosing anything super. But like, they had the biggest table in the restaurant, and they, from what I can remember, everything on the menu was on that table.
Did they sit at that back room where we did the interview last time? You and I.
It was close to that table. Yeah. It's the big round table we have at the back, and they just like, it's the biggest one we have, and they just when I went over to say hey, it was full of food.
Good Lord. Okay, well, that's cool. And we're going to talk about that afterwards because I'm fascinated by that. But we're going to wind things up with a question, okay?
Go for
it. Imagine that the authorities come. They say, Nico, you got to get out of Paris.
Right.
You're leaving. And you say, I don't want to. They say, I'm sorry, you have to. And you go, okay. And they go, guess what? You get one last day. You have to spend it in the 10th arrondissement.
All right, that's a crazy question.
And you say, obviously, I'm going to be at Holybelly. And they go, no,
It can't be a Holybelly. So like, what would I do in my last day in Paris in the 10th?
What would you want to see and be at and that kind of stuff?
All right. Well, I would go for a last coffee because I love coffee. I would go to 10 Bells because I like that walk from where I live to 10 Bells. I would walk across the canal, go for a coffee, have it to go, drink it outside. Then I would go to Du Pain des Idées, which is also our historical supplier for bread. It's a beautiful boutique, and their bread is out of this world. The escargot, so I would get an escargot, eat that.
You're saying a snail? You mean a snail bread?
Yeah, because it's shaped as like, it just kind of spins on itself.
Yeah.
So like I would get that. It would be all about food, really. What would I do next? I would just walk around and maybe get some lunch at Vervolet. Vervolet is really good. Maybe drink some wine into the afternoon, and then where would I go? And then I'll be quite drunk by then, so maybe have another coffee, and then think about dinner in the 10th. There's so many options. I found this new place. I hope they won't mind me kind of exposing them to the world, but next to Gare de l'Est is this place called Chez Marius. And it's good, and I don't think it's very well known. And it's like they're so nice, and they're natural wine, and they have the most beautiful blackboard I have ever seen. It's literally like it's almost like a work of art, and they wipe it every day. And I'm like, who does
That's a good sign.
Oh yeah, it's such a good sign. So chez Marius, and then kind of drink myself silly, and then leave.
Is there one particular street that you'd recommend people walk down in that district?
Oh yeah. I see. Like I forgot so much about, but like Rue Saint-Denis, which is next to my house. Rue Saint-Denis has a lot of like ethnical food going on, and like a place called Urfadurum that's this really good like Turkish pizza.
Yeah.
And I love walking down that street all the way from Magenta all the way down to Porte Saint-Denis.
With the big...
with the big arch, like the small Arc de Triomphe.
The old entry to Paris.
That's it. I would walk that very slowly, taking all the smells, taking all the sights. It's a really cool street, very busy, lots going on there. I'm sad that I didn't mention that for my last day, but I would definitely swing by Rue Saint-Denis.
That is a good answer, Nico, and thank you very much for sharing your arrondissement with us.
Thanks, man.
And best of luck in the next 2 years till I have you on the show again.
That was going to be my joke. I was going to be like, see you in 3 years, man.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
And that was Nico from Holybelly. You can check out their restaurants and everything else in the show notes. But now I'm joined in the studio by Bertrand from My Private Paris.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. You got me at the start there with the hipsters.
Hipsters love the 10th arrondissement, but I wanted to give you a pretty good gift here, actually 2 gifts.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not going to continue about hipsters.
Okay.
Instead, we're going to talk about the wall.
The wall.
Yeah.
You're surely talking about the Philippe Auguste wall, my favorite wall.
I'm actually talking about the new wall. You know everything about Philippe Auguste. I've
You're
tried.
right.
I cannot teach you anything on that one.
But
so we have
there's
to
another wall.
We have to push to the next wall, the wall of Charles V.
Okay, I'm actually pretty interested in this. I don't know much about it.
The idea is, so Charles V, we are about 150 years after Philippe Auguste. So the city grows bigger, and the wall is pushed further out to incorporate new neighborhoods into the city.
Okay.
So boulevards are now the tracks of the Charles V wall.
I need to clarify this because I've wondered about this. When you say the tracks of the wall, was it a wall there along those boulevards?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just all disappeared now and become boulevards.
Exactly.
Okay.
And actually, it was a very important decision to take down this Charles V wall. It was a decision taken by Louis XIV, my favorite king. It's the one who built Versailles. You know, it's the place I love the most as a guide. And he decided that Paris no longer needed a wall because no one would get to Paris.
Confident king,
confident borders, and he did not destroy, the wall was taken down, but 2 gates were built like arches of triumph. I'm talking way before the big arch of triumph everybody know about.
Yep.
I'm talking about 2 smaller, but maybe more beautiful arches of triumph built in the 1600s, in 1672 and 74, to celebrate a war won by France that had pushed the enemy so further out of Paris that we no longer needed walls.
So so you're talking about the 2 big archways in the 10th arrondissement.
Yes.
But I always thought that they were doorways to lead into the city.
They are called les Portes Saint-Denis and Porte Saint-Martin. So you're correct in thinking that they could be doorways. You're also correct because they are built at the exact location, give it a yard or two, of these two gates within the walls. Okay, Porte Saint-Denis was to get into on the road to Saint Denis Basilica, where the kings of France are buried outside of Paris, and Saint-Martin to the borough, the Faubourg Saint-Martin. Okay,
Yes.
there were gates. The walls was taken down, so the gates disappeared. And to remember that, but mostly to celebrate the king, these two arches of triumph were built there.
And those arches were built long after Charles V then.
So yes, they will built long after Charles V, but they were built when the Charles V wall was taken down.
I get it. Yeah, okay.
In-
So I had that totally wrong in my head.
because you thought the stones were is actually under. No.
I thought that those big, beautiful, and I'm going to put pictures of this in the show notes and online so you can all imagine it. But just imagine, guys, at home, imagine the Arc de Triomphe that we all know and love. There's two smaller ones that look quite similar but not as big that are function. You can walk through them and they're down in the 10th.
Yes, you can walk under.
Yeah, but I thought that they were, like the wall would have joined right onto
They're
the side
not
of it.
the last remaining parts of the wall. No, the wall was taken down entirely. It was a more medieval wall, and so these two arches are made with reliefs, so sculptures in the stone of Louis XIV. But you don't see him just like that. He looks like a Hercules,
Really?
or Apollo, or a Mars. Not the bar, the god of war.
Yeah.
And he's smashing the Dutch and the German.
Do you have a preference of those two arches?
I like the Saint-Denis better.
Is that the one that kind of looks like...
It's the bigger one.
There's one that's closer to Republic. That it kind of looks like it's made of... It looks like a brain.
Yeah.
You know that one? Which one's that?
That's the one, Saint-Denis.
You like that one?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know which one I like better.
They're way, way, way smaller than the big one of Napoleon.
Yeah.
Okay, because the Arch of Napoleon was to make a point and say that nothing that he's achieved had ever been done before. But they are much more similar to the ancestral Roman Arches of Triumph that maybe some of you guys have already seen and admired in Rome.
The thing is with those two doors in the 10th, they're in what I would say is not a very touristy area.
It's changing a bit.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely an area where you can find a lot of Airbnbs, if you guys prefer that to a hotel. But also, it's an area that is becoming more welcoming for tourists because there's more and more decent hotel, and sometimes even great hotel.
Yeah.
There's the Renaissance Place de la République. It's a 5-star hotel.
Yeah.
And it's in the 10th.
Yep.
And you have a lot of boutique hotels out there, but it's definitely an area I would advise if you want to go out late at night, if you want to have dinner at 10 p.m., if you want to go to go for cocktails, etc. It's the area you will want to go to, and you need to be aware that it's not the postcard Paris.
Sure.
The streets are not necessarily very clean, and it's always very, very lively
And very fun.
and very fun.
Have you got something in your rucksack today?
I have.
To bribe the host.
I have, because in the 10th arrondissement, I've told you it's the area of hipsters, okay? And in the core of this hipster Beauboland, there is a very, very, very great bakery. It's called Du Pain et des Idées.
Yes, Nico on the show mentioned it. And what have you been there?
I've taken one of their specialties. It's called un roulé. It looks a little bit like a snail.
Okay.
And it's with pistachio.
Yes, that's funny because he mentioned that in the show. Yeah, amazing.
Because you see, we know our stuff.
So you've got
So
one
here
of
you
them
go,
there,
Oliver.
right?
You
Okay.
big boy, eat that because you need to feed yourself.
That is wow, that is big. That's more than a breakfast for one, I would say.
Yeah.
Are you gonna hang around and help me eat?
Or you keep it in the paper and you can have it with your wife tomorrow.
That's a good question. How long if you buy something like this, how long would a Parisian keep it for?
When you buy a viennoiserie like that, okay, you know it's a viennoiserie.
I know
not
it's a
cake.
viennoiserie, yeah.
Okay.
I've been listening.
You eat it on the day.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, it's crispy outside, of course, but if you wait a little bit, it's going to dry. And so all the inside is going to be not as good.
And can you eat it on the go?
You can keep it in the fridge, actually.
Yeah.
And so you'll save yourself a few hours.
But what
Maybe
about
a day.
what about walking and eating? That's not really done here, is it?
It's not much, so you can
Yeah,
stop on the.
I can get away with it.
You have a beautiful church just down the studio.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You can, and the trees are all in blossoms.
Are you
so
kidding me? I'm going to walk down to the Arches.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
share it with the pigeons underneath.
Yes, you know your place.
This you've been listening to Bertrand from My Private Paris. Check him out on myprivateparis.com. There'll be loads of links in the show notes and pictures of all the things that have been mentioned for Patreon supporters. But Bertrand, will I see you next week for the 11th, or is it Marie?
I will be there.
It'll be you.
I will be there.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for coming to the studio.
You're welcome, Oliver.
See you next time.
Bye.